Extremism, nativism, isolationism, and a lack of economic opportunity for working people are all preventing us from realizing our nation's promise. And so we must decide whether we will continue to be prisoners of the darkest of American forces, or will we free ourselves to write a brighter, better, nobler story. That's the issue of this election, a choice that goes straight to the nature of the soul of America.
You know, we've talked for 4 years now, since 2015, in some ways about the theoretical death of a constitutional order, a governmental order that, for all of its imperfections, so many of us have valued. Now it's moved to a more literal phase. There's nothing amusing, diverting, or simply interesting in the abstract anymore about this presidency. We are facing the wages of not having been a serious enough country about the person we sent to the Oval Office in 2016. Full stop. I could go on, but I think we all understand the point. And I'm not being, I promise, this is not being partisan. This is not some anti-red hat thing. All I'm saying is, and I think Congressman Lewis would echo it in that wonderful voice where he always spoke with a kind of biblical shout. He was a little guy, but his voice was so strong. If you want to end this reign of terror, this reign of error in terms of COVID, you've got to vote. And the idea that somehow or another, because one thinks that Trump is an idiot or he's he's a racist, whatever you might think, one might think, it's not going to matter if what happened in 2016 happens again. The Enlightenment is on the ballot in November. Are we, as a public, as a voting public, as a politically engaged public, willing to believe the evidence of our own eyes as opposed to the pre-existing views that we might have in our heart or in our gut? That's what's on the ballot here. Well, Andrea, we've known each other a long time. I don't know your politics. I don't think you know mine. But every once in a while, a choice presents itself where I believe, for me, ambivalence or neutrality is not an option. And we are facing a grave crisis. Crisis, remember, in Greek, it comes from Hippocrates. Crisis can mean the moment the moment of decision in an illness where a patient lives or dies. And we are facing a democratic, lowercase d, crisis in the country. And it's not a partisan point. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I have voted for both parties.
This is a very practical man who believes in these ideals, who believes that diplomacy is hard work. As you say, it's meat and potatoes. You just keep plugging. And there was, I guess my insight watching the press conference yesterday was there was a kind of poetry in his prose. Does that make sense? Not literally his prose, but just the whole, it was straightforward. And by being so straightforward, it seemed kind of elevating to me. And I think historically speaking, Biden and Harris fit into the archetype of presidents and vice presidents who take the responsibilities of the task seriously, who are not simply in it for entertainment or ego, but who are, in fact, interested in governance and interested in the rest of us, not just themselves. There was a kind of poetry in his prose. There was a kind of poetry in his prose. There was a kind of poetry in his prose